Sarah's Secret Song Snippet Round 2 begins in this episode.
Hi, this is Richard Blade, and you're listening to the Blue Zone Podcast Network as it presents Permanent Record, an in-depth look at the classic albums of the 70s and 80s, albums which have earned a permanent place of honor, both in our hearts and in our record collections.
Run and tell the people, Brian and Sarah are back in town.
We are, aren't
That's
we?
right, we are. So run and tell the people, the Permanent Record Podcast is back.
Hi, Brian. It's great to see you.
Same here, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to talk with you, especially today,
Oh, yeah.
as today's been a very exciting day here.
Yes, at the Permanent Record Podcast headquarters recording studio. Wow, we're still on a high.
We are on a high, and that is, of course, because, as you probably can tell by the title of the episode, we got a chance to speak with legendary performer Billy Vera today.
Yeah, wow. What a treat. What an honor. I'm so glad that you reached out to him, asked him for some of his time. He was more than generous. He wrote back and said yes, and here we are with part 1 of a 2-part little series of conversations with him. It's going to be amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. I still can't get over how much time we got from him. I've been listening to this man since I was 15 years old. I was a huge fan of the first album I ever got by him, by request.
Right.
Best of Billy Vera. And it inspired me to get all the albums that came before that. I've gotten all the albums that came after it, except for one, which I can't find.
Ooh.
But I'm going to get it someday.
Okay.
It's only half him. It's him and a woman whose name I can't think of.
Okay.
Together on one CD. But man, getting the chance to talk with him was amazing. Like, you guys probably won't believe this just because our podcast is always about like 80s alternative music, Depeche
Right.
Mode, The Cure, New Order and stuff. But growing up as a kid, I loved Billy as much as I love those bands.
Yeah.
And I'm not a fan of country music, but I love his songs that sound like country songs.
Uh-huh.
I don't know much about rhythm and blues or jazz, but I love all of those songs.
Right. Yeah.
So-
He just appealed to you so much that you were willing to listen to and enjoy anything that he released.
Yeah. I grew up listening to those records. I still play them today.
Oh, yeah.
He was on one of my favorite TV shows of all time, probably my favorite TV show of all time, Wiseguy,
Yes.
which was an old crime drama that was on in the late 80s, early 90s. So it was great to get to talk to him about that because he's dabbled in acting. He's been in a number of movies,
Yeah.
TV shows.
He's had such a varied and successful career, all kinds of different things that he's worked with and people that he's worked with, and so many stories that came out of that we got to hear today.
Yeah, it was awesome. So if you want to get all the details on things that he's done, you can visit his website, billyvera.com, or follow him on Facebook at The Real Billy Vera. You can get all the details there. We're going to talk about a lot of it, but we couldn't possibly talk about everything.
No.
Billy just celebrated his 80th birthday.
Yeah, can't believe that. I think he's maybe in a little bit of shock too that he's made it this far and he's still out doing things. It's really, really awesome.
You know what really would have shocked Billy?
No.
If I had followed through on what I was talking to you about earlier this week.
Oh, yeah.
And telling him those 3 stories that I mentioned to you that I was going to
Yeah.
maybe tell him to prove how much of a fan I was.
Yeah. Yeah, you were really unsure if you were going to bring those up during the course of the conversation. Did not happen.
No, I didn't want to scare him.
Yeah.
And these aren't like super creepy or anything.
No.
But so the first thing is, I was thinking maybe I would tell him that back when I was 16, taking Art 2 or Fine Arts or something in high school, we had to do a final project, which was a painting in the style of an established artist somewhere through history.
Okay.
And I decided, well, Vincent van Gogh, his style is very sloppy with big brush strokes, and I'm pretty sloppy, so I could maybe do that. And because of that, I painted this.
Aha.
As I'm holding up an 18 by 24 painting that I did back in the mid to late 80s. Sarah, as you can tell, this is a painting of Billy.
Yes, that is Billy Vera right there in the, well, flesh tones anyway. Yeah, and wow, what a painting that it is.
Does it look like Vincent van Gogh painted him?
I definitely see that influence there in the brush strokes. Yeah.
So I was thinking maybe I'd show him this painting, but ultimately I was too afraid to show him.
Yeah.
But guess what? You can all see it in the show notes of this episode.
That's right.
So if you want to see a painting that young Brian did of today's guest, feel free to look in the show notes.
Yeah.
Another thing I was going to tell him was around that same time period at my computer programming class in high school. We worked on Apple IIe computers. My end of the year project, when you had to make a game, I programmed the Billy Vera game.
The Billy Vera game.
Which was a computer game. And it wasn't a text adventure. It actually was a graphical video game.
Oh, I'm sure the graphics were amazing.
They were pretty good. They were an Apple low-res graphics.
Okay.
If you remember what that looks like, 16 colors. And you controlled a little figure that didn't really look like Billy, but it was Billy. The instructions to the game said, the first thing it said was, "You are Billy Vera."
Yeah.
And the object of the game was based on a throwaway line, not a throwaway line, an important line, but a line from his appearance on Wiseguy when he said, "Look at me, I'm a rock and roll dinosaur." In the game, you have to battle the rock and roll dinosaur. So Billy has to go to 3 different screens, collect some power objects, and then on the 4th screen, you actually battle the rock and roll dinosaur as Billy.
Okay.
So up until a couple years ago, I could have showed him the game, but our Apple IIe computer stopped working soon after we used it to record the Information Society episodes.
That's right.
If you recall.
Yep.
So I have a painting of him. I wrote a computer game about him.
Oh my gosh. I bet that's unique. I bet no one else has ever done that.
I should have asked him, Billy, how many computer games are there based on your work?
Yeah.
And then the last thing was, I was just going to mention that back when we were in college and we had the radio show on our college station, there was always a couple times a year, where you had to write down every song that you played on your show because they told us like the artists were going to get paid. Right. Or the songwriters were going to get paid. So even if it didn't happen during my shift, I would always be sure to grab a shift that weekend. And I would be sure to always play Billy's song, "Wrong When I'm Right," which is one of my favorite songs by him. It's off of the Retro Nuevo album from 1988. And I would always play it on the air, write it down to make sure that Billy got, I was like, he's probably only getting like a nickel. Yeah. But I want to send him a nickel from, me. Yeah, it was a very good gesture of goodwill. Nothing wrong with that. I think I was telling you, if you do tell him only one story, I think that would be the one to tell. Mm-hmm. But now they're all out there. They're all out there. And just picture the playlist of that radio station that day. It would be like Depeche Mode, An Emotional Fish, Hindu Love Gods, Billy Vera, 9 Inch Nails, Yaz. It doesn't fit with the songs, but I loved it. Right, yeah. He doesn't really fit with the rest of the music that you listen to, but you embrace him so much, you listen to everything that he's ever put out, really. And that's awesome. Yep, his first album came out, I think I say in the interview it came out in 1967, but I think it came out in 1968. I think I always get confused on that because his first solo album and his first album with Judy Clay actually came out the same year. Oh, weird. So his first album came out in 1968, so we're going that far back in this episode. We're going to go even a little before that as we talk about writing songs in New York City at a music publishing firm. It's so interesting. That time period of music is just so fascinating to me. Those publishing houses that write songs, that, people who are paid 9 to 5 to write songs and then they shop them around to the artists. Yeah. It's such an interesting idea. It really doesn't happen like that anymore. And we even do get into that later. That'll probably be in the second part. But yeah, so many great stories. Just he's done so many different things, so many successes and some things not so successful, but yeah, just wonderful to hear all of the legends and lore of his history. So we hope you'll enjoy the interview. Once again, it was a complete honor for him to spend time with us. Most of his music, all of his books are available online, Amazon.com, wherever you like to shop. The better online vendors are going to have them. Did we talk about the books right here on this I think we need to talk about the books. Yeah, he's got several books, actually. I guess 3, right? Right. Yep. One of them, of course, is his memoir, From Harlem to Hollywood. Which is a great read. As we talk to him today, you're going to hear some of the stories that are in this book, but there's so many more in this book that are just delightful. So. Oh, yeah. Yep. He also did a book called Rip It Up, The Specialty Records Story. And that's about a little tiny record label called Specialty Records and the history of that. Yeah, and he's going to go into detail on that in part 2 of these interviews. It sounds really interesting. Yeah. And just if you're a fan of like music history, even if you don't know the artist, like the business of music and label politics and things from long ago. The ins and outs. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be really interesting to read. I'm going to order a copy. Definitely. Yeah, and then he's done all this other stuff in his life. He's written songs and he's acted. And then he decided he was going to write a book. And he wrote a fictional novel just a few years ago. And that's called A Dollop of Toothpaste. And that was cool to get the rundown because when you read the synopsis on Amazon, it just sounds so wild. So we ask him, don't tell us the whole book, but tell us, what is this about? Yeah. So we get a little taste of that story. I think it's proof that he's I mean, I know he's creative from
Sure.
listening to his music for all these years and reading his biography, but I think like the fact that he used the word dollop in the title of a book, that shows creativity.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
not a common word.
No, I don't see that one too much. And yeah, that catches your eye, catches your ear when you hear it. Dollop, huh? I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you can find out more about all of this stuff on his website, billyvera.com. And of course, you can also find him on Facebook at The Real Billy Vera.
That is it. So let's jump into the interview. Once again, one of the most enjoyable things I've ever done
Yeah.
was the 4 hours we spent with Billy. Thanks again, BV. I'm going to call you BV now that we spent so much time together. I had a blast, and it was an honor to get to talk with you.
Absolutely.
So check it out. Here's part one.
When I came up, you had to know how to fight. Those were the times when you could tell wrong from right. Those days are gone and we're living in times when men and women don't know their own minds. Oh.
All right, so we are so excited to be talking to a legendary man in so many fields today, Mr. Billy Vera. He's been a favorite of mine since 1986, when I first discovered him, along with a lot of other people in the 1980s. Billy has done an incredible amount of things. He's recorded so many records, starting with 1967 Storybook Children up to 2018's Timeless, which is a great record.
That's right. Yeah, and he's the subject of the excellent documentary Harlem to Hollywood, which is now available on Amazon and Tubi. And he's the author of the autobiography, also titled Harlem to Hollywood, and the recent fictional novel A Dollop of Toothpaste.
He is the host of the Saturday Night Fish Fry radio show, which can be heard on jazz88.org.
And he's soon heading to Italy to play at the Paretta Soul Music Festival, where he will be receiving the Sweet Soul Music Award.
That is so nice. I'm glad to hear that. And Billy can be found online at billyvera.com or at The Real Billy Vera on Facebook. Billy, thanks for making time to talk with us today.
My pleasure. Happy to be here with you guys.
We're so excited to get to talk to you.
Yeah, and there's been a lot going on with you lately. You recently celebrated your 80th birthday, and you've had a couple of birthday party concerts, and there's one still coming, the Billy Vera Big Band birthday party, coming up on June 21st at Herb Halpert's Vibrato Grill. So how have these events been for you? And did you ever think you'd still be performing at age 80?
You know, that brings back a kind of funny gig we played way back in our 20s, me and the guys. This is when I still lived in New York. We were booked to play alongside a belly dancer.
Oh, wow.
Such a thing. And we were standing in the wings while she was doing her act. And I looked at her bass player that she had up there on the stage with her. And I said to the guys, I said, look at that guy. My God, he must be 35 years old. Can you imagine still doing that when you're 35? It's all relative, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
Are you excited about the trip to Italy?
I am. I've never been, and having grown up around a lot of Italians, Southern Italians, but, so I'm familiar with the culture. But, they tell me that Northern Italy is quite different. They sort of look down their nose at Southern Italians.
Oh,
That's not real Italy, huh?
No, they're more Swiss, I think, or French or something. So I expect the food to be a little different. I've eaten Northern Italian food, and it's not as strong on the red sauce as Southern Italian food is. But I'm still excited about it. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Oh, for
They
sure.
apparently have a great band that plays their shows. They're guys from Memphis, so they're familiar with the type of music that I do.
do you already know what songs you're going to play when you get there?
Yeah, I do. I only have to do 5. So I chose a Corner of the Night to open.
Oh,
and
nice.
then I'll do either Room with a View, which has gone on to be a bit of a modern day blues standard, with recordings by Lou Rawls and Johnny Adams and Eric Burden. and a lot of people you never heard of. And so then I'll either do that or Country Girl City Man. Apparently they've got 2 girls to play the role of Judy Clay.
Nice.
And then I'll do Storybook Children for the 4th, and then close with At This Moment, of course.
Nice. That's an impeccable set list. The Room with the View, you wrote that song with someone who was actually like a blues legend, right?
I got a room. I got a room with a view. I got a room. I got a room with a view. I got a house full of troubles and a room with a view of the blue.
Yeah, Lowell Fulson, the great Lowell Fulson. He was brought to my performance at the Roxy by a mutual friend named Paul Gayton, who was, if you don't know, Paul was the first rhythm and blues star to come out of New Orleans and have a hit record in 1947. And he sort of adopted me when I first moved here in 1979. And we became very, very close friends. And so he was a great supporter, you know. And so he brought Lowell. And Lowell showed up, you know, in classic blues man attire, you know, a maroon suit with a maroon bowler cap, maroon tie, maroon shoes.
Oh, wow.
And he was just an outstanding looking gentleman. And Paul introduced us, and I was a fan, you know, of Lowell's records, Tramp and Reconsider Baby and all those big hits of his. And Paul said, you know, you 2 guys are great songwriters. You ought to get together and write something. So I went down to his house one afternoon, and there he was in his kitchenette watching General Hospital with the sound turned off. And, you know, and he fancied himself a businessman. And he said, you know, there's this band up in New England called The Room Full of Blues. And I said, oh, yes, I've seen them. They're great. And he said, we ought to write a song by that name. Maybe they'll record it. So we knocked it out in about 20 minutes.
That's crazy.
I went home, and you know, I'm cooking my dinner. I lived in a garden apartment at the time in Hollywood. And I sat down to eat my pasta fazool or whatever I was eating. And I looked out the window across the courtyard, and there's this beautiful actress coming out of her bathroom, totally in the nude. Had just taken a shower.
Wow.
So I watched her, you know, walk down the hall and through the kitchen and down another hall into her living room. And I said, boy, I got a room with a view of the blues. and it just struck me. I called up Lowell immediately. I said, we got to change the name of this song. That was the source of the title, you know.
I love it.
That is so funny.
You know, I later recorded it myself with a big band on my big band album. And we did a video, animated. I don't know if you ever go on YouTube. Oh, you have seen it.
Yeah, it's really cool.
It's very cool, isn't it? Yeah.
Yep. You've been doing videos, like within the past year or so, you did a video for Hopeless Romantic, which is from one of your early 80s albums, right?
I'm a believer. And much more than anything, I believe in you. You're not a deceiver. If you told me the ocean went dry, I'd believe it was true.
Yeah, that was actually probably closer to 8 or 10 years ago, that video. A woman approached me at one of the clubs and said, I'd love to do a video of your song Hopeless Romantic, which is one of her favorites, she said. And so I said, yeah, sure, that'd be great. Jerry Wexler, the great head honcho at Atlantic Records, who assigned me to Atlantic in 1967, he produced that record in 1981 down in Muscle Shoals and added the strings in New York. And to his dying day, he insisted that Hopeless Romantic was one of the 5 greatest productions he ever made. And this is the man that produced Ray Charles and Aretha Franklin and Bob Dylan and all these great people. But he loved that record, and he was very proud of it. So I loved the record myself. Jerry did a masterful job producing it. So, that was how that came about, and then we did I think the most recent video we did was for a song on my Timeless album called I Knew You When. We hired these young people to do it. The son of a friend of mine and his wife, very talented filmmakers, and they made a lovely video of I Knew You When.
Yeah, it's really nice. Sarah and I were talking about Hopeless Romantic just yesterday, and hopefully you'll take this as a compliment. Here on the East Coast, we had a guy from Philly area many years ago, Jim Croce. I don't know if you're familiar with his work, but Sarah and I both like him a lot. And every time I hear Hopeless Romantic, and Sarah said this as well, it kind of sounds like a song that he would have sang. Like, do you remember Time in a Bottle? Do you remember that song?
Oh, yeah, sure.
That was Jim Croce. It like stands out from a lot of your other songs, especially because I first heard it on By Request. So, most of the songs had the full horn line and everything, and then Hopeless Romantic was so stripped back with the strings and the guitar. That's a brilliant, beautiful song.
Jerry also brought me. Jerry was one of the great songmen of our business. I mean, he goes back to in the late 40s, before he was with Atlantic. He was writing record reviews for Billboard magazine. And one day he told me that a record came across his desk by the Harlem big band Erskine Hawkins, which itself was a cover record of the Pee Wee King original version of the song that also was recorded by Cowboy Copas. And it was called Tennessee Waltz. And so Jerry listened to the Erskine Hawkins record, and he said, wow, he said, this would be a great song for Patti Page. And he immediately called up Patti's manager, Jack Rail, and got it to her. And it was, of course, her career-making hit. Years later, I met her, and I mentioned Jerry to her, and she said, oh, yes. She says, I owe Jerry Wexler my career, for that, bringing me that song.
Yeah, nice.
What a great song. I remember one time I was doing some sort of songwriter thing back in New York, and the interviewer said, well, it was me and Chip Taylor, and he asked us both, if you could have written any song not by you, what would it be? And I don't know why, but I said Tennessee Waltz. We've written that sucker.
Do you remember what Chip said?
I do not. No, I don't remember that day. That was right after we had written a song called Papa Come Quick that was recorded by Bonnie Raitt successfully on her biggest album, Luck of the Draw.
Jody's gone to the city. What are we gonna do now that Jody's gone? She left a note on the TV, and Papa, it's a pity. What we gonna do now that Jody's gone?
That was an album that was following up a big hit for her, and people didn't think they didn't think it was gonna be as big as that previous one, and then it was bigger.
That was an interesting thing. Her at the time when my record at this moment was hot, I was approached by her manager, Danny Goldberg, to talk about him managing me. And he took me to lunch. And during the lunch, he was telling me, about Bonnie and his great success that had just happened with Nick of Time. And he said, Bonnie was with Warner Brothers for 15 years. And she left there in an ocean of red ink, meaning she didn't make any money for the company. Her album, she was a great singer and a great artist, but the public didn't agree. And so he said, finally, when we left, when Warner Brothers dropped us, he said, I went to every record company in town and nobody wanted her. Nobody. He said, finally, I got to Capitol Records and they said, yeah, we'll take her, but, she doesn't sell records, no front money. In other words, usually they give you an advance if you're a name artist, and a small recording budget. And despite that, she made what was perhaps the most focused album of her career, Nick of Time. And of course, 5 Grammys later, and 3.5 million records later, then the public finally discovered.
Right.
Yeah. One of those overnight successes that really wasn't. So,
Yeah. You know, my friend that I produced Lou Rawls with, Michael Kuskuna, who just passed away, he produced Bonnie's second album on Warner Brothers, which was the only record she made for Warner Brothers that went gold. I think it went gold. Michael was a great producer, mostly jazz, but he was friends. In fact, the way I got the song Papa Come Quick to Bonnie was, after Nick of Time, she called me up and she said, you know, I got to do another album right away. They want an album. You know, I don't write a lot of songs and I need songs. You know anybody that's got songs? You got anything for me? So I like the way she sang ballads. And so I said, I'll make up a tape of a couple of ballads and send it to her. So I'm on the phone with Michael, and his wife, Lisa, was eavesdropping on the conversation. And she said, tell Billy to send her that little Cajun song. You know, I said, oh, I don't know, man. I don't know if it would be right for her. You know, I don't know that Bonnie could relate to those kind of people. You know, she's sort of, you know, she's from a different class of people. And Lisa was very insistent that I send her Papa Come Quick. So, you know, just to placate her, basically I put it on the end of the tape. And as it turned out, Bonnie already had a fantastic ballad on that follow-up album. If I Can't Make You Love Me, or whatever it is.
I Can't Make You Love Me.
Oh, yeah.
That's a gorgeous song.
Great performance and a great song. So she didn't need another ballad. As it turned out, there was an opening on the album for an up-tempo thing. So she said, I like that one. So she said, I can't figure out that guitar part, and I want to play the guitar part. So my guitar player had given me the guitar lick, which he wrote on an open G tuning.
Okay.
That might be a little deep for your listeners, but so I said, Ricky, get over to her house and teach her that lick. You know, if you have to move in with her, teach her that lick. And so he did, and she learned it sufficiently. And so the day of the session, she calls me up in a panic, and she said, I got my band here, and I can't get them to play with the same feeling as your demo. She said, can you come over and help? I said, sure. She said, oh, and bring your guitar.
Oh, boy. Okay.
So I went over to the studio, and I had them run it down for me. And I said, well, the problem is, I said, you guys are playing too good. You know, it's got to be kind of dumb. You know, the style of playing. She said, can you do that? I said, nobody does dumb better than I do. I told the drummer, I said, just play. I said, don't even play with your sticks. You know, put your hands in your pocket and just play your bass drum. Thump, thump, thump. and keep it really, really simple. And it worked. And the record came out great. I was very proud of it. Oh, and the other thing she said when she first heard the song, she said, you know, I love the song. I want to record it, but I got one problem with it. She said, I understand that the song is coming from this, you know, lower class white family. And, you know, in the song, the sister, daughter, whatever she is, she runs off with a Mexican-American guy, biker, dope dealer, whatever he is. And she said, you got a line in there that's perfectly for who's singing the song. She said, you know, it must have been that wine-eyed, silver-tongued beaner, which is a sort of a slur, you know, and not a very polite word to use. She said, but I understand it's if we were making a movie and you know, one of us was acting that role of that guy, you would use that word. She said, but my audience, she said, you don't know. My audience is a little stiff. She said, can you come up with another word? I said, so often, I don't know how it came to me. I said, how about schemer? You know, not as authentic.
Right. Still works.
It saved the day.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's good.
So these are all like songwriting. That was a great story about songwriting and thinking on the fly with your songwriting. And you also mentioned Chip Taylor in there. So let's use that to segue to some songwriting questions, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Because you started working at a really interesting time, in my opinion, because at least as far as I know, there's nothing that really exists like it. In the mid-'60s, early in your career, you worked as a staff writer for a music publisher. You were a professional songwriter, and not yet you hadn't recorded an album of your own. What was the workday like for you when you were working at a publishing company?
Well, I'll back up a bit before that to give you the background. I had made a record in 1962 with my little band. One side was a song we found written by Etta James and Harvey Fuqua of the Moonglows. And the other side was a song just to fill it out that I wrote. Well, and those were the days of regional records. You know, a record could be number one in, one town and number 0 in another town and everywhere else. So Etta and Harvey's song went to number 1 in Pittsburgh, and it was a hit in northern Connecticut. Then the side that I wrote was a top 10 record in Texas and Louisiana. I guess it, fit that market a little better. So the record company, they said, we got a guy who's going to be working our publishing now. Do you have any more songs? That's a good little song. And so I said, yeah, I got some songs. So I played him some things. And he took a couple of them, gave me $35 a piece for them, and paid for demos. And a few weeks later, he called, and this one song I had written with this brand new girl singer in mind named Dionne Warwick.
Oh.
I liked the way she sang, and I liked the couple of songs I had heard by her. So I wrote this song with her in mind. And so I'm thinking, boy, if he could get me that girl Dionne Warwick, that'd be great, He called me up a few weeks later, and he said, I got a record on one of your songs you gave me. I said, really, which one? He said, Mean Old World. I said, great. Who'd you get? I figured Joe Blow recorded it, somebody I never heard of. He said, no, I got a big star. I got Ricky Nelson. And I'm like, Ricky Nelson, he's white. I wanted that girl Dionne Warwick. He said, you ingrateful little putz. I'll never forget he told me that. He said, Ricky's going to do your song 5 weeks in a row on the Ozzie and Harriet show. You're going to make money from that, and everything Ricky puts out is a hit. So he was right. It was a minor hit, but it was a hit.
I walk in a crowd, hiding tears I can't cry out loud. I can't let them see me cry, 'cause they don't care if I live or die. And it's a mean old world, let me tell you, it's a mean old world when you need someone.
So here I was, the first song I ever took to a publisher. I got lucky.
You thought it was easy.
Beginner's luck, So in those days, the business was a cottage industry. If you had a hit record, especially by a guy named Ricky Nelson, all his songs came from the West Coast, everybody knew your name on Broadway. It was that fast that people, who's this new kid, Billy Vera? So anywhere I went to try to peddle my songs, they would listen. Everybody, in those days, everybody had a piano in their office, and you sit down at the piano and you go to work. And so one of the places I went was April Blackwood Music, which was a company that was owned by CBS Television Network and Columbia Records. And they took a couple of my songs and ran with them. And the boss there was a wonderful man named Jerry Teifer, great publisher, great song man. He said, you're writing some really nice things here. He said, I'd like to give you a job. We can pay you $75 a week, and advance against royalties. You work it off, and a little office with a little piano in there. He said, but you still need a little seasoning. I'm going to put you together with this guy we have here named Chip Taylor. As it turns out, Chip, who was 4 years older, he went to my high school.
Oh, wow. I didn't know
Oh
that.
my gosh.
Another friend of his that he had a little band with named Ted Darrell. And Ted wrote She Cried. Ted was a great writer also. And they were both working at April Blackwood. Ted was about to leave. So they gave me Teddy's office. And the first song that Chip and I wrote together, called Make Me Belong to You, became a hit for Barbara Lewis on Atlantic Records, my favorite label in the world.
Yeah.
'Cause darling, I am whatever you make me. So baby, whatever you make me belong
we were invited to the session where we
Wow.
met Jerry Wexler. So Chip and I decided to write a duet for maybe a couple of Atlantic artists. Maybe Wexler would record them. So we wrote this song, and we made a demo, and we played it. We went up to Wexler's office. We played it for him. He pounded his fist on the desk. He said, "Man, that's a smash." And he said, "Get rid of the girl in the demo. And I'll record you on Atlantic Records." Oh my God. Okay. I've already had my name in a little tiny print, underneath the song title. Now I'm going to have my name on an Atlantic record in normal print, but I got to find a girl. So at the time, I was still working with my band, and we were a house band at the number one club in the area on the border of Connecticut and New York, called the Country House, later known as the Deer Crest Inn. And on weekends, we had hit record acts, one on Friday and one on Saturday. And then it was like going to musical college, because we learned how to back these people. And my guys could read music, so that put us ahead of the game. Most club bands couldn't read words, much less music.
Oh, wow.
Musicians aren't known for their intellectual capacity. So, in fact, the first weekend we did that were the two most difficult acts to play. Their music was hard. Patti LaBelle and the Bluebells. I mean, they did songs like Danny Boy in D flat.
What?
You'll Never Walk Alone in B natural. Probably the most impossible key to play in. And we pulled it off beautifully. And we played with them a lot of times after that. And they became friends. And then the next night was Little Anthony and the Imperials, who also had very difficult songs like Going Out of My Head and Hurt So Bad, intricate pieces of music. And I'm still friends with Anthony.
Oh, wow.
So anyway, I thought that Nona Hendrix, who was one of the Bluebells, had a voice that would fit well with mine. Patty's voice was too high to blend with mine. So I asked Nona, called her up in Philadelphia, want to make a record with me on Atlantic, because they were signed to Atlantic at the time also. She said, yeah, I'd love to. So she comes to New York, we record the song. Well, then the manager gets in on the act. Mr. Montague was his name.
Oh, my.
These girls, to do a gig, this is the tinsel and glitter world of show business. They would drive up, all four of them, the manager and his wife, and 4 crinoline gowns in the trunk, 3-hour drive to New York to play a gig for $350 less commission, and drive back to Philadelphia because there wasn't enough money for a hotel.
Wow.
I mean, that was show business back then. So anyway, we already had Nona on the record. We had to take her voice off, and we auditioned 20 more girls.
Wow.
But they all sounded like they should be singing Stephen Sondheim songs. They weren't right for the song. So finally, Wexler called up and he said, we got this girl, Judy Clay. She's a cousin of Dionne Warwick, from the same gospel group as Sissy Houston and the part of the family. Take a listen to her. So Judy walks into our office, 14 months pregnant, big as a house, and a chip on her shoulder the size of Wyoming, because she was kind of bitter, because Dionne had made it. Dionne's sister Dee Dee had made it. Sissy Houston had made it with the Sweet Inspiration. And here's Judy, who was the lead singer in the Drink Art Singers, the gospel group, family group. She hadn't made it yet, and she had made a bunch of records. So she was kind of bitter, but she sang great. So she left, and they said, man, she sings great, but can you think you can handle that attitude? I said, look, I got a sister like that. I can handle it.
You had
And as it
practice.
turned out, she and I became great friends to the day she died. So we made the record. It comes out.
And Billy, it's too late to turn away and start all over again. Oh no, don't tell me it's too late, baby. Why can't we be like storybook children?
And unlike most records, which take off in the hinterlands and then finally get to New York, this record started in New York. And before long, it was number one on the local black stations and number 3, I think, on the white stations. And we were offered to perform at the Apollo Theater. And of course, in those days, you didn't make an album, so there was no picture of us.
Right.
So nobody knew what we looked like. And at that time, the Apollo was a 7-day-a-week job, 5 shows a day, 7 days a week.
Oh my gosh.
That's grueling.
It's not as hard as you think, because everybody does about 3 songs per show, and you sit around the dressing room for the rest of the day. But anyway, I show up for rehearsal Thursday night after the previous week's show, and Honey Coles, who was the stage manager, Honey Coles was half of the dance team, Coles and Atkins. You can go on YouTube and find the wonderful tap dancers. And he says, Harlem hasn't seen you yet, meaning me.
Mm-hmm.
He said, so I got it. Now, this is a month after Martin Luther King was murdered.
Oh.
So there's riots going on across the river in Newark, New Jersey, burning down the city. And he said, I got an idea. He said, Judy, you enter from stage right, which is on the left as the audience sees it. They call it stage right. And Billy, you enter from stage left. Wait for her to take 3 steps out of the wings, and then you make your entrance and watch what happens. But see, these old timers, they knew everything about show business. And in those days, the old timers, they saw it as their obligation to school us youngsters, about the ins and outs of showbiz and performance. And, you learn so much from these old guys. And so I did what he told me. 1, 2, 3, enter. 1,500 people gasped at the sight of this skinny little white boy. And I could hear people saying, that's him? That's him? Because they knew the record, the number 1 record. And he had put us on second. Now, that's a lousy spot. The opening act is always a highly choreographed, what they call a flash act, in vaudeville, and to excite the audience, get them ready. And then the second act is usually somebody new, not that known, maybe not even that great. And then it gets better, 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 star, after about 9 acts. And the star does like 20 minutes, 25 minutes. Everybody else does 13 minutes. So we went on, we went over great. They loved our song, So after the first show, he comes up to our dressing room and he says, look, I'm gonna change up the show. I'm putting you all on before the star.
Nice.
Wow.
Nobody gonna follow you two.
What a promotion.
And that was a promotion. And, that became our spot when we played the Apollo Theater. We were hugely popular up there. In fact, 20 years later, when I was producing Lou Rawls, Lou had a benefit to do at the Apollo. So I go up there with him, and we go into the stage door, which is in the back of the theater. And in that little vestibule there, where there's still that sign, that famous sign back there, please do not ask for passes for your friends. If your friends won't pay to see you, who will?
Right.
So true.
So it was, the little vestibule was packed with, men, shoulder to shoulder, all black men and me. And amongst them, holding court, was a man named Ralph Cooper, who, unless you were an aficionado of old black movies, you probably wouldn't know who Ralph Cooper was, but he was an acting star and had a radio show. And he's talking to Lou, and he's looking over Lou's shoulder at me, trying to figure out who I am, because by this time I'd put on a couple of pounds and lost my hair. I didn't look like the same skinny Billy kid, from 1968.
Right.
So he says, Billy Vera, come here, boy. And I go over to him. He throws his arms around me, and he says, welcome home, son.
Oh, my goodness.
He says, I want everybody in this room to know what this man did for our people, because that was an unusual pairing at the time. In fact, unheard of, more than unusual. And you don't think of it. I mean, I wasn't the kind of person that thought about stuff like that. I wanted the sound of the voice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't want a girl that sang Stephen Sondheim songs.
Right.
Yeah.
Were you two the first interracial duo to hit the Billboard Top 100?
Well, in modern times, yes. Now, the 40s, were a little bit more open-minded than later days, believe it or not, because Tommy Dorsey, who was probably the most popular big band of the era, he had an arranger named Cy Oliver, who was a black fellow, great arranger. And Cy wrote a song called Yes Indeed. And on the record, Cy sang it with Joe Stafford, the great Joe Stafford.
Oh, really?
Wonderful, wonderful singer. And they had a hit record. I don't think they ever did it on television because there was no television. And then, but also Gene Krupa had a big band after he left Benny Goodman. He had Anita O'Day in his band as the vocalist, and his black trumpet player Roy Eldridge. They sang on a song together called "Let Me Off Uptown." But neither of these songs were love songs.
Okay,
they were good time, fun, jive kind of songs.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a big difference between having an interracial duo singing, hey, let's dance and do the jitterbug, and a love song. So
right.
we were the first time that had happened.
Okay. A year or two after you and Judy quit playing together, you guys recorded a song called Reaching for the Moon, which is a really good song.
The people got together and looked at you and me
and said forever together would be so wrong, so wrong. We're just reaching for the moon, yes we are. Songbirds singing out of tune, yeah.
Was that always intended to be like a one-off, or was there hope that you were going to record like another full album together?
Well, here's what happened. One day at the Apollo, in fact, Jerry Wexler called me up and said, Judy was signed to Stax Record, not to Atlantic.
Okay.
Stax was distributed by Atlantic. And that ended. That relationship ended. So he called me and said, look, we're not going to distribute Stax anymore, which means you and Judy can't record together anymore. I said, but don't worry, I found a great song for you for your first solo hit. And it was on a Bobby Goldsboro album called With Pen in Hand.
with pen in hand. You sign your name today at 5. I'll be on that train and you'll be free and I will be alone. So all alone.
Jerry had me recorded the day after we finished the Apollo. In fact, the morning, 9 o'clock in the morning.
Wow, things move fast.
Oh, he moved fast when he was hot on a song. Nobody could move as fast as Jerry Wexler. Recorded 9 a.m. Friday morning. Over the weekend, he had test pressings with typed labels made up and sent to every radio station in the country. By Monday morning, it was on every station in the country.
Holy smokes.
Became my first solo hit.
Yeah.
So, all right. So I wasn't able to follow that up for various reasons. So about a year later, Judy, who was difficult to get along with, they dropped her at Stax. And she came back to Atlantic with her tail between her legs. And Jerry said, well, you know, we can have Judy. You want to make another record with her? I said, sure. All right, I'll send you down to Muscle Shoals, Alabama. You guys record down there. So we went down there. We recorded Judy. We recorded me alone. We recorded me and Judy together the next day. And then the third day, Jerry and Tom Dowd came down to record Judy alone. And Jerry asked me to stay. He said, look, she can be difficult, but you can handle her. So would you please stay for an extra day? So while I was there, I pitched a song that Chip and I wrote, of course, and she recorded that. And then I suggested another song that Alan Toussaint wrote called Greatest Love. And as it turned out, that became the only chart single that Judy Clay ever had by herself without a duet.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, Reaching for the Moon comes out. Boy, Black radio was ready for that song, and it was a great record. And they start playing it. The Apollo Theater calls up. Now, we hadn't played there in over a year. And you have to understand the Black audience is not a nostalgic audience. It's what have you done for us lately? And they always want the latest thing, the hottest thing. So they don't care what records you had a year or 2 or 3 ago. You got to prove yourself every time. So they wanted us back. And the owner was willing to pay us the same money we had made when we had records on the charts, which was pretty indicative of how popular we were. So Judy says, well, my cousin Dion, she gets more money every time she goes back to the Apollo. They should pay us more. I said, Judy, you don't understand. I said, Dion has 5 more hit records every time she goes back. Why'd they give her more money? No, I won't. She refused to go back unless they paid us more. So obviously they didn't book us. They knew what they could afford. And Wexler got really, really angry. And he said, to hell with her. And he didn't want any part of her anymore after that. So that was said. We lost a hit record.
Yeah, right.
Who knows what would have continued.
Yeah, that is a great song. Speaking of great songs, something that you mentioned in your book, Harlem to Hollywood, is that you trained yourself to write songs for specific artists, which kind of surprised me. I mean, obviously, I'm not a songwriter, but I always think that when someone starts to write songs, you probably end up writing songs that sound like your heroes, like the things that you love. That's sort of how you'll start off until you discover your own voice. Was that true for you, or did you truly have to work hard to write songs in the style of the other artists?
Well, I don't know how hard it was. Look, what would typically happen was, you get a knock on the door of your little office, and your boss would come in and say, hey, the Drifters are recording next week. See if you can come up with something for them. So you listen to their records, whether it was the Drifters or the Shirelles or whoever, and you figure out what their vocal range is. Like Patti LaBelle has a very broad vocal range.
Right.
Jimmy Reed, the great blues singer, has a range of about 6 notes. So you fit the range. Also, you try to fit in, well, what is the subject matter that this singer typically sings about? Does he sing comedy songs like the Coasters? Does he sing sad love songs? Does he sing happy love songs? Does he sing songs where he's the winner in the relationship, or he's always the loser, or she's the always loser? And so you aim toward that artist. Typical example. One day, the boss came in and he said, Chuck Jackson, the great singer that sang Any Day Now and I Don't Want to Cry, a great soul singer.
Okay.
Big favorite of mine, like Benny King, one of those kind of singers.
Oh, okay.
And he said, he's coming up for a date. Can you come up with something for him? I said, boy, I'd love to. I love the way he sings. So I'm thinking about it. And Chuck, his career had sort of slowed down. His records were kind of sounding lazy. It wasn't really kicking butt, I said, maybe what can I write that'll make him come alive? And at the time, I had been listening to a blues record by Junior Parker called Driving Wheel, in the middle of which Junior stops the music and then he preaches like one of those Baptist preachers. And I said, well, that would be an interesting device to use in this song. Maybe I'll do that. So I utilized that in this song I wrote for Chuck. And I said, man, if Chuck gets his chops around this song, man, he's going to preach and it's going to be great. Well, he didn't record it. So my boss took it to another record company, Epic Records. And as it turned out, they heard the song for this young white rock group from New England called The Remains.
Okay. Oh, okay.
And when the record came out, they sent us copies of it. I listened to it. I said, wow, this is not the way I heard the song. But boy, this is great.
You both made your bed and now you're gonna have to sleep there. Old man blues is going to try to find you everywhere. Don't look back. You better not look now. Look back. Or he'll catch you. Look back. You gotta keep running till the end of time. Oh yeah.
Man, this could be a big hit. So I thought. Well, it made it to like number 109 or something. And that was the end. The band went on tour, the Beatles' last American tour. Can you imagine what that's like? you go on, do your act, you play your little heart out, and people are going, "You suck. We want the Beatles."
Right.
And the group broke up. I guess they were so disheartened after that reception that they got.
That would do it.
That would do it. So a few years later, my career was in the toilet. And whatever happened, usually when my career goes down, my addiction to collecting records goes up. And I was down in the village, Greenwich Village, at a place called Village Oldies, looking through the bins, as I want to do. And this skinny guy with long hair comes over to me, and he said, "My name's Lenny Kaye."
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, he said, "I know where there's a stash of your Atlantic albums for like 60 cents a piece." He said, "You interested?" I said, "You bet. I can sell them in the club."
Good for you.
For $1.
Yeah.
Right.
Or whatever. So he said, "By the way," he said, "I used a song of yours on an album that I compiled of garage rock songs called Nuggets, album called Nuggets." And I said, "Wow, that's cool. What song?" He said, "Don't Look Back." I said, "Whoa, yeah, that's a great record." He said, "Well, don't get too excited. The album didn't sell."
Oh, boy.
So now cut to 20 years later, and I got, at this moment, I get a phone call from Cyndi Lauper's husband. I don't know how he got my number, but these people can find anything. He said, Cyndi just cut a track on your song, "Don't Look Back." Said she wants to do it as a duet with Joan Jett. I said, "Wow, that'd be great." Never came out.
Jeez.
Wait, it gets worse.
Oh, no.
6 months later, I get in the mail one of those demo CDs with 4 songs from Robert Plant's next album on it, one of which was "Don't Look Back."
Uh-huh.
Wow.
The album comes out, "Don't Look Back" is not on the album.
Oh, man.
Now
are they
I think,
doing?
like the Malocchio is on my song. It's jinxed. Cut to another 20 years. Now the song's 40 years old. Rhino puts out an expanded version of Lenny's Nuggets album, like now a 4 or 5 CD set. It sold a ton of records.
Yeah.
So 40 years later, the song starts making some money.
It's about time.
And a year after that, Rhino puts out a Robert Plant box set, and "Don't Look Back" is on there.
Okay.
It sells a ton of records. Now, cut to a year ago, this past April, a year ago, it's the 50th anniversary of Nuggets. Lenny was doing a series of shows around the country, and he did one here in LA, and he said, "There's no more remaining. And would you want to sing your song for our show?" So I said, "Yeah, sure, that'd be fun." And so we did it at the over here in Glendale at the Alex Theater, beautiful old theater. Every rock critic in town was there. Every record nerd was in town there. It was sold out. And in the house band was this guy, what's his name, from the REM. He's playing guitar behind me.
Peter Buck?
Peter Buck,
Yeah.
Yes. So it was the coolest night I think I may have ever spent, because I'm meeting all these people backstage from all these different groups. They were like a generation under me.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And it turns out these people knew who I was, and they were like fans of mine.
Oh, that's so cool.
Yay.
I mean, the coolest one was this guy Wayne Kramer from MC5.
Oh, my goodness.
He just latched on to me like he's my big fan.
That's
and
great.
Like, the last person in the world I would think that would know my music, much less be a fan of it.
Yeah.
And we became friends. He came to a couple of my gigs, brought his wife. Anyway, I went out and on stage and I told the story I just told you. Took up probably too much time, but I asked Lenny, I said, "It's a pretty cool story. Do you mind if I tell it?" He said, "Absolutely. This is the kind of thing that this audience would like."
Yeah, they'll love it.
So that whole thing is on YouTube.
Oh, that's cool.
Oh, we'll have to go look
I'll
for
check
that.
it out.
Yeah, check it out. And I went up there, and that old competitive spirit, that I learned at the Apollo, it came out, and I said, "Man, I'm going to go out there and kill.
All right.
I'm going to go out there and murder them." And I did.
Awesome.
I got this big standing ovation. It was so much fun. But the biggest fun was meeting all these people that I had never have met.
That section in the middle where you do the preaching stuff, that has got to be rough on your voice when you're, you get up there. Like you have a studio version of the song on your latest album, Timeless.
On Timeless, yeah.
Yeah, and there's that part where your voice just kind of shoots up, and I'm like, oh my God, how's he hitting that note? He's he's almost 80 and he's hitting that high note. I'm sure live it was awesome.
Yeah, they dug it, man. They dug it all right. And I got the audience to sing the Don't Look Back part.
Oh, that must have been a hoot.
I remember seeing that was the anniversary of that record because like twice a year they do the record store day event with all the special records. And I remember seeing it was getting some sort of anniversary reissue for that.
Yeah.
So, that's great.
You file that under, who would have thought?
Yeah.
Yeah. How many times has that happened in your life?
Yeah, it was pretty great. So anyway, that's how you professional songwriter writes. I remember in the building where we were, 1650 Broadway, which was up the street from the famous Brill building. 1650 was really the cooler building. we had Goffin and King there. You had Mann and Weil there, Sedaka and Greenfield.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, a lot of the great songwriters of that period were in 1650 Broadway. Most of the great publishers and even little record companies were in those two buildings.
Okay.
There were a couple other buildings on Broadway. There's 1697 was another one, but that was like lower end people. Yeah.
Gotcha.
But I remember Goffin and King saying that when they wrote Will You Love Me Tomorrow, they were trying to write a song like Save the Last Dance for Me. The two songs don't really sound alike. You can't accuse them of doing a steal at all.
Right.
No.
But sometimes a song influences you to write another song.
Absolutely.
Like I would write, I lived up in White Plains, my mother's house, and also my first marriage, I lived up there too. I would take the train down to Broadway to write songs. And I would always read books on the way down. And sometimes something you read in a book will light a candle that make you want to write. Perfect example, I was reading the Billie Holiday biography. And in it, she says something about her husband or boyfriend or whoever he was cheating on her and coming home with lipstick on his shirt, all that. And she just said, don't explain. She recorded a song called Don't Explain in the 40s. So I sat down that day and I wrote a song inspired by that called Don't Try to Explain. And it's a beautiful, beautiful song. And there was only one record on it. The lead singer of the Zombies recorded it under the name Neil MacArthur in England, made a wonderful record of it. It didn't sell 6 records. But to this day, it's one of my favorite records of any of my songs. But that's how that one started. See, so, or sometimes somebody tells you about their pathetic love life, or something you see in a movie or read in a book, and you mix them all together like a gumbo. It's a piece of this, a piece of that. That becomes a song. It comes any number of ways. There's no set pattern.
So writing songs can really be an inspirational process, and inspiration can strike at any time, right? One example of that is Freddie Mercury. He came up with the song Crazy Little Thing Called Love while in the bathtub. So
great title.
What's the most unusual place you've ever had an inspiration to write a song?
Well, I was more of a, being a professional, I would sit down and just bang on the piano until something came to me, maybe a set of chords. I hate songs that are predictable, I like to see if I can come up with a set of chord changes that I haven't heard in other songs before. And then maybe a line will come. Here's an example. After At This Moment hit, I got signed to Capitol Records, and they wanted me to do an album. So I said, boy, I got to come up with some songs. And I asked Chip to come out for a week or so and help me write songs, and we did. And another friend of mine, Larry Brown, L. Russell Brown, very successful songwriter, who's a friend of mine. He wrote Tie a Yellow Ribbon. He wrote Knock 3 Times. He wrote Come On, Marianne by the Four Seasons. So we were sitting writing songs together, and we came up with a line, if I were a magician. We actually wrote the last verse first. If I were a magician, I would make him disappear. I would simply snap my fingers and he'd be gone from here. I'd wave my wand and from now on you'd belong to me. Or if I were a magician, you'd still be here with me. So we had that. And then I don't know which of us, maybe him, maybe me, said, let's save that to the end. Then we wrote the first and second verse. It can happen in a myriad of ways. It comes when it comes, you know.
If I were a magician, I would make him disappear. I would simply snap my fingers and he'd be gone from here. I'd wave my wand and from now on you'd belong to me. Oh, if I were a magician, you'd still be here with
That just gave me chills. If I Were a Magician is my number 3 Billy Vera song of all time. So getting to hear you recite that last verse was amazing.
Thank you.
I love that Retro Nuevo album. I know that in your book you say it wasn't a great success, and you said you weren't 100% happy with the sound of it. But man, I love that record so much.
There's a lot of greatness to it. You know, I think I figured out the problem later. You know, Tom Dowd was one of the great producers. He was a friend from Atlantic Records days. There was a warmth was lacking. After Michael Kuskuna and I started producing Lou Rawls, then I got what was missing. Mm. I have a often misguided sense of loyalty to people, and I use my band. And as great as they are live, they're not on the level of the guys we used on the Lou Rawls records in terms of studio recording.
Okay.
Actually, on my version of If I Were a Magician and on my version of Between Like and Love, the piano player is Richard T., the great Richard T., who we used on the Lou Rawls records. Richard was that kind of player. He was a magician in the studio. He had that rare ability he could play a lot of piano, but he knew how to leave space for the singer. You know, he knew how to underpin the singer and be like a pillow for the voice to rest on. And your average piano player, no matter how good, that's a special skill that most of them don't have. Mm-hmm. They want to show you how good they are. They have trouble fighting off that impulse.
Right. They should be supporting you as the vocalist, but they want people to notice them.
Yeah. You know, like Wexler once said to me, when I was a kid, you know, he mentored me in many ways. He said, you know, there's 3 kinds of record production. There's like the Chess Brothers, where they'll take a Muddy Waters or a Chuck Berry or a Bo Diddley, and they will record them as they sound in the club when they're playing. Then there's the type of producer that's like Mitch Miller, Phil Spector, Motown, where it doesn't really matter who the artist is. It's about the production. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Does it really matter whether, you know, Levi or David Ruffin is singing on those Motown records? Not really. You know, they're both great, or does it matter whether it's Rosemary Clooney or Joe Stafford singing on the Mitch Miller records? Not really.
Right.
He said, but our method at Atlantic here is we take a great artist and we try to surround them properly, like they're the picture and we are the frame. Mm. You know, and that way, and in that manner, we try to build artists that will have some longevity, where a lot of these people don't have longevity.
Yeah,
that works for us. And so that's how Tom Dowd learned, and that's, of course, what Jerry Wexler. And then years later, when I matured a little more, that's what we tried to do with Lou Rawls. We took a career that was in the dumps at that point. He had been making what I call Vegas disco records, terrible records that weren't selling. And Blue Note, this is in 1989 now, Blue Note signed him, Bruce Lundvall, a great record man. I said, what do you want us to do with him? He said, take him back to his roots. Take him back to the music that people first loved him for. He said, don't try to compete with Janet Jackson or people like, you know, younger people like that.
Yeah.
Jazz, blues, you know, some of your songs. So he ended up recording 7 of my songs.
Right.
And we used Richard T. We used Cornell Dupree on the guitar. We brought in saxophone soloists like brilliant geniuses, Benny Golson, Fathead Newman, Hank Crawford, Stanley Turrentine played a solo on a record of it At Last. Well, wonderful people. They all wanted to help Lou. We brought in George Benson.
Oh, I like him.
Guitar solo on You Can't Go Home.
George Benson plays the guitar solo on
Yeah.
when Lou covered your song?
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
You can't go home no more.
And George and Lou and I sang the background. We called ourselves the Lou-rettes.
Lou Rats.
And then, yeah, and show you how great George was. That set of chord changes on where the solo is extremely unusual. I've never heard it in any song before or since.
Oh, wow.
He listened to it once, did one take, and it was genius.
That's so great.
One take.
Wow.
And it was one of those solos that he does, signature solos, where he sings along with the solo.
Wow.
Jeez.
The guy was fantastic. Yeah.
Hey, you mentioned a minute ago Somewhere Between Like and Love, or Between Like and Love, people who played on it. That was your first time working with the great Arif Mardin since
No.
68 when you did with Pen in Hand, right?
Yeah. Arif did the strings on that.
Yeah. So you worked with him on those two great songs. What does he actually do? Like when he comes in, is he arranging music that you yourself have already written, or does he write music for the orchestra to complement what you have on the piano and guitar?
In the case of With Pen in Hand, he listened to the Bobby Goldsboro record, which was an album cut only. He said, what key do you want to do it in? And I said, I want to do it in D flat because I felt that my highest note would be nice up there. And D flat's a difficult key, but not for guys like that. I mean, we're talking about great studio musicians that can play. As they say, fly shit on paper they could play. So that was that. And then with he did the strings on Between Like and Love,
Right.
and If I Were a Magician.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay.
My version.
Yeah. I know for sure he did Between Like and Love.
What I'm feeling now is something quite apart. I'm lost somewhere between like and love. Somewhere between like and love. Much more than one, not quite the other. How can we know if we run?
Yeah, on those we recorded the track, the rhythm track first, which in both of those cases it wasn't the full band. It was just the bass player, my bass player, and Richard T. And I think that was all.
You had Jim Keltner on drums.
Oh, and Keltner would have been playing at drums, right? You're right. You asked it in your question sheet about Keltner.
Yeah.
What had happened was we made a movie called Blind Date, and my drummer at the time, his brother was the guy in charge of the music. Great guy, Al Bonetta, no longer with us. And Peter Bonetta was my drummer. And so Peter and his partner were record producers. And so we sort of gave them the opportunity to produce the 3 songs that we did for Blind Date with the Beaters as the musicians.
Mm-hmm.
And so, when the hit record comes, that had been done before Peter was with the Beaters. He had hoped to produce the Capitol album.
Okay.
So, out of loyalty, I threw his name into the pot when we discussed it with the Capitol brass. And they said, no, those guys, they make singles, clicky little catchy singles, Robbie Dupree type singles.
Uh-huh.
And he said, we see you more as an album artist. We need somebody more along those lines. So I said, well, there's nobody better than Tom Dowd for that kind of an album. So they hired Tom Dowd for me. And well, Peter, was hurt or insulted because he thought he deserved to be the producer.
Uh-huh.
Based on what? I don't know.
Yeah. Right.
But so he quit the band. So I had just hired this very good drummer named Freddie Allway, but we felt that he hadn't been with us long enough. And Tommy Dowd said, "Look, let's hire somebody like Keltner. He'll come in and knock this stuff out."
He's played with everybody over the years. He's a bigwig.
Yeah, famous drummer.
Yeah.
But I realized years later that what I should have done with that album, I should have gone with the kind of people, the level of musicians that we had on the Lou Rawls albums later.
Okay.
Because not only commercially but artistically, the records that we made with Lou, I felt were better than what I did on my Capitol album.
Uh-huh.
There was something not more professional, but there was something more there.
Uh-huh.
I don't know any other way to describe it.
Well, I will say this to you. In the decision to get rid of, was his name Peter?
Yeah.
To not let Peter produce that record, he produced that original version of Let You Get Away that was in Blind Date, right?
Yes, right.
The version of Let You Get Away that's on Retro Nuevo sounds much, much better. I mean, I love the songs on Blind. My favorite is Anybody Seen Her. That's like a great upbeat song.
She's sweet as cherry cake, and when she walks, she shake. And if I lose her, my heart would break. Anybody seen her? Said I don't know what I'd do if I lost that girl. And I think that I would die.
As a kid, I was all about dance music. Even though I was listening to Billy Vera, I also loved all these 80s dance music, 12-inch singles, and I thought that was a great upbeat horn line in there.
Very commercial sounding record.
And the horn line lends itself to like a dance floor, I think.
Absolutely.
So I love that song.
We wrote that. Larry Brown and I wrote that song. When we did the movie, the kids in the scene were dancing to my song, Someone Will School You, Someone Will Cool You.
Oh, yes.
But for some reason, Blake Edwards, the great director, didn't want to use that song.
Well,
I think he felt the lyric would distract from what was going on in the movie.
Yeah, I could see that.
So he said, "Can you come up with something, at that tempo?" Because they're already dancing to that tempo. So Larry and I, in my living room, were fooling around with the Someone Will School You tempo.
Uh-huh.
And I started playing on my guitar. I used to love the song Monkey Time by Major Lance. So I started playing that lick, that Curtis Mayfield guitar lick. And then we wrote the song based on that, but in the Someone Will School You tempo.
Mm.
And then when we got in the studio and we started fooling around with the band, we kept that tempo, of course. We had to.
Yeah.
But it came out to be nothing like Monkey Time. And then, of course, the brawl breaks out in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened was Blake, he loved us. His wife, Julie Andrews, loved us, believe it or not.
I believe it.
They would come and see the band.
That's great.
Yeah. They told the story about they were at some big, Hollywood event, and it was boring. And Julie says, "Let's go see Billy. Let's go." So they get in the limo, and the whole 4, 5, or 6 of them, they come in the club and they're sitting there, and Julie Andrews, the great Broadway star, she's out there rocking away with the Beaters.
Nice.
I love it.
So anyway, in the movie scene, Blake, wanting a natural reaction from me, he sends 2 stunt women up to attack me, and so I immediately realized that that's what he was doing.
Uh-huh.
So I did what I would do in the old days in a nightclub when a brawl breaks out. I pick up my mic stand and I start swinging it around. And you can't hurt stuntmen or stunt women. I mean, you could throw them off a building. They're not going to get hurt.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, in the scuffle, my leg rubs up against an amplifier or something, and it rips my pants and cuts my leg.
Mm.
Uh-oh.
So, they patched me up. And the next day, all the stuntmen and stunt women come marching in onto the set, and they got a stuntman's cap and a stuntman's T-shirt, and they got a stuntman's patch, and they made up a little thing,
like a plaque.
Said, "Billy Vera, you are now officially a stuntman.
Add
And I
that to
said,
your
"This is one
resume.
of the great honors of my life.
You're one of them. Oh
Yeah, I'm
my
one of these
gosh.
guys. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Oh, I love that story.
Something that I had for way later in my notes, but I'm skipping around through all my notes anyway. So you filmed Blind Date, which is a great Blake Edwards movie with the lovely Kim Basinger and Bruce Willis. In the 80s, I was also a big fan of Bruce Willis's album Return of Bruno. Of all of all the actors who had albums, I thought that was by far the best. So I was just curious, did you ever find yourself sharing a stage with his alter ego Bruno?
No, well, yes and no. Before that, we were playing at a club, once a week or whatever, called The Central on Sunset Boulevard. It was a little dumpy place. A lot of roadies hung out there, rough crowd. But we played there, and they had a marquee out front. My name's on the marquee. And one night, this guy comes in. I had just seen the first episode of Moonlighting. And I said to myself, wow, this guy with Sybil, he's great. I remember thinking, this is what the business needs, because most of the actors you saw on television were pretty boys at the time. I said, this guy's no pretty boy, but he's a guy. He's a real guy, and the world needs a guy right now. And I just felt that very strongly about him. So he comes in, and the show was only a week old. And he comes up to the stage in the middle of my act. Not act, we're just playing.
Uh-huh.
And he says, man, I saw your name out front, and I had to come in. He said, I used to be a bartender for Peter Weller's club in New York. Now, Peter Weller was the star of another movie I was in called Buckaroo Banzai.
That's right.
And Peter owned the club, and this guy, Bruce, was the bartender. He said, Peter bought 200 copies of your album and gave it to all his friends and employees.
No
He
way.
said, I became a fan of your music. I said, oh, cool. I said, wait a minute. I said, aren't you that guy? Aren't you that guy in that new show with Sybil? He said, yeah. And I said, dude, mark my words, you're going to be bigger than big. You're going to be a big star, and I'm never wrong. And of course, I was right. And so he came to all our gigs. Anyway, that night he asked me if he could come up and play harmonica with us. And I never let anybody up on stage.
Uh-huh.
But I liked him, I said, yeah, come on up. There's not many people here.
What could go wrong?
And he played a couple of, blues songs with us. And he started coming into the clubs every time. And as the show got bigger, and it took off fast, that show. Mm-hmm. And he got bigger and bigger. And after about a year, maybe even less, people started bugging him at the table. They'd come over, they wouldn't leave him alone. They wanted autographs and wanted to talk to him, and he couldn't come out anymore.
Okay.
And so finally, in the end, he stopped coming. And then we got in the movie together, and that was a great reunion. He was just a great guy. And now, when he's got dementia,
That's rough.
I wish, and I knew Demi before he met her.
Oh, wow.
There was a guy on General Hospital, Ken Schreiner, who was a big fan. He had used my song Corner of the Night in a breakup love scene that he had on the show.
When you touch me, my heart sold me up the river like a slave for you. In the corner of the night, with your arms holding me tight.
So one night he brings in a bunch of the kids from General Hospital, including young 20-year-old Demi. And she and I got friendly. So I knew her before Bruce did.
Oh, my goodness.
Bruce before she met him, too.
Yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
So, it's funny how all that crazy stuff works. But yeah, Kim, now she was interesting because we got friendly in the makeup trailer. And it was just she and I and the makeup girl. And she was chatty. She'd talk to me, she'd come to my gigs. And she was very shy around more than 3 people in the room.
Oh, really?
If there's 4 people in the room, she wouldn't say a word.
Oh, my gosh.
Not snobbish or anything at all.
Yeah.
Wasn't like that. She was very shy. But if you were alone with her, she'd talk your ear off. somehow she got my phone number. She called me up, talked for 2 hours, 3 hours.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. I never dated her, because when I met her, she was still married to that first husband. But one time they came to the club, and we always let people in the dressing room back in those days. She comes up to me, she whispers in my ear, she says, all these people think you and I are having an affair. I said, yeah, I should be so lucky.
Yeah, that wouldn't be bad.
Well,
Yeah.
the affair part might not be so good.
Hey, since we're talking about TV actresses, I have a quick question. You probably don't know this, but over the years, I've pestered you online with questions via email and on Facebook. Every couple of years, I'll send you something just to ask you a question because I'm listening to your music. But a few years ago, I wrote to you about an odd 45 record that I found, and you shared a very cool story with me and a very cool picture. And I was wondering if I could get you to tell it here. I had found a 45 of a song called She Ain't Lonnie, and I was shocked because I knew She Ain't Johnny, which I have on a number of records, and I love that song, but I'd never heard She Ain't Lonnie. So I wrote to you, said, what's going on with this? And you explained it to me, and I wonder if you would explain it now.
She ain't Johnny, she ain't bad, she ain't the best thing I ever had. Last night she kept me from feeling sad. She ain't Johnny, but she ain't bad.
Sure. Going back to Larry Brown now. Larry, this was in 1976, a low point in my career.
Well, sorry to bring it up then.
One of the men, no, listen, I escaped, proud of it, happy, grateful. So low, I was playing at a Ramada Inn in New Jersey.
Oh, wow.
That's low. Now, what happens in a gig like that is during the week, it's a week-long gig, 5 nights, 6 nights.
Okay.
During the week, you're playing to like 3 businessmen from out of town who hate you because the waitresses are talking to you instead of them.
Oh, that makes sense.
On the weekends, you might have a few people, It's what I call a survival gig. So here we are on a Tuesday or Wednesday, whatever it was. I come off stage. Waitress says, hey, that fellow over there with his wife would like a word with you.
Mm.
His wife was like this, dressed in that 70s, like a denim jumpsuit with little mirrors all over, that a lot of women wore back then.
I know what you mean.
Flaming red hair, not like yours, Sarah, but like really crazy red, So I go over to the table. He stands up like a gentleman. He extends his hand. He said, El Russell Brown, I wrote tie a yellow ribbon around the old oak tree. Now, I couldn't get arrested in those days. I'm thinking, like, how nice for you.
Yeah.
He said, Vera, always call me Vera. To this day, he calls me Vera. For some reason, he calls me Roadhog because I used to do a comedy routine, which I won't even bother going into.
Okay.
We got a restaurant near here called Roadhog.
Yeah. So he says, Vera, he says, I was watching you up there. My wife made me come to see you. She said she heard a great singer was playing here tonight. And indeed, you are a great singer. He says, you're one of the great singers. You're a great songwriter. Yeah, but you never make any money. He says, me, I make a lot of money and nobody respects me. He said, I had an idea. He said, you and I should write together. I could teach you how to make money and you could teach me how to get respect. I said, I'll try anything at this point. So I started going over to his house, in the afternoons. And he was a very energetic fellow, and we wrote a lot of songs. I mean, not all good, but, sometimes we write 2, even 3 songs in a day.
Wow.
So like everybody that does something successfully, he wanted to try something else. He wanted to be a producer. He had made a record with somebody or other in Nashville, Pete Drake's place. Pete Drake, the great pedal steel player. So he got a gig producing this, I forget what they call it up there in Canada, the equivalent of a Grammy.
Is that a Juno?
Juno, thank you. Juno award-winning band, the Good Brothers. And they were literally brothers. So we wrote some songs for them, and we went down to Nashville. We brought my drummer and my bass player, who became quite famous, Tommy T-Bone Woke of the Hall & Oates. He became famous with them.
Oh,
Very
right.
cool.
Greatest rock and roll musician I ever played with. Anyway, we go down and we worked with the Nashville guys, Pig Robbins and all these great Nashville players. Made the album with the Good Brothers. And then Pete Drake liked me, and he said, "Why don't you come down and do an album with Billy?" So we wrote some more songs, and we went down there and made an album with me. We had some good songs, really good songs. The night before the session, we went to, Larry says, "There's a great pizza place in Nashville." I said, "Get out of here." Nashville pizza? He said, "Yeah, no, really, it's great." Larry was half Italian, half Sicilian from Newark, New Jersey. So I figured, well, maybe he knows. So we go, and the pizza was great. He said, what do you think, man? I said, well, it ain't Johnny's. Johnny's Pizzeria I had taken to him in Mount Vernon, New York, which was my favorite pizza place. I had taken Larry there. I said, well, it ain't Johnny's, but it ain't bad. So Larry says, oh, my God. He said, that's a song title. Let's go home. Let's go back to the hotel and write it. So we wrote it. The next morning, Larry, who was still a novice producer and tended to overproduce at that point in his career, he had no time to come up with overproducing ideas for She Ain't Johnny. And we just let the musicians do what they would do with it, have their way with it. And of course, it came out to be the best thing on the album for my money.
Yeah, it's a really good song.
It unfortunately didn't sell, but it was still one of my favorite records I ever made. And so now, cut to 3 years later, I'm out in L.A., and Jeff Baxter, Skunk Baxter, had joined the band, the Beaters. And he was a real go-getter, businessman type. He said, this girl, Lonnie Anderson, on the WKRP, we ought to change the name of that song to She Ain't Johnny to She Ain't Lonnie. Maybe we could get some radio play if we do it that way. So we took the track, the tape, went in and just changed the vocal. Didn't work, but shows you how desperate we were at the time.
And you got to meet her too. I saw a photo of you with her.
Yeah. They took a publicity picture of me presenting the record to Lonnie Anderson.
Yep, that's pretty good.
That was pretty cool.
Yep,
That ain't bad.
She ain't Johnny. She ain't Lonnie, but she ain't bad.
So, Billy, you had your biggest hit in 1987 when At This Moment hit #1 on the U.S. Hot 100, the U.S. Adult Contemporary, the Canadian Top Tracks, and the Canadian Adult Contemporary chart.
What did you think I would do at this moment when you're standing before me with tears in your eyes, trying to tell me that you have found you another, and you just don't love me no more.
That's not really a question. I just wanted to brag a little bit about how successful you were and set up Sarah for her question.
Okay, you kind of alluded to this a little bit already. You've said that autobiographical songwriting is for amateurs and that you prefer to use a combination of sources when writing a song, like snippets from books and movies or scenarios you invent yourself. So the vast majority of your songs are written in that style. However, the song you're most known for is at least partly autobiographical. So how do you feel about your most famous song not being perhaps the best representation of your usual or preferred writing style?
Well, of course, I'm grateful more than anything else. This was after we had done the Nashville album. It came out on a label that was distributed by RCA, by the way, called Midsong. Had a couple of hits for a while. So we were playing at a club closer to home, up in Pleasantville, New York, the home of Reader's Digest.
Oh, yeah.
And it was called The Siding because it was right next to the railroad tracks. Sometimes the trains would go by while we played, commuter trains to New York City. And one night we're playing out there, and I looked across the small dance floor, and there's two couples sitting. There was one couple that looked like a couple. And then there was the other couple that looked like, they were there together, but they weren't really together, And she was gorgeous, just one of these women that just owned the room, and she knew it. You know, you could see it. She played with her hair or whatever. And I said, oh my God. I was so struck by her that, I mean, I almost forgot words to the songs I was singing. I came off stage and I said to either the manager of the club or somebody, who was that girl up there? He said, oh, that's Nina. Yeah, she used to be a waitress here. She goes to college up there. And she was gone. So we played there a month or so later, and she was there without a date. And so I was introduced to her. You might find this hard to believe, but I'm very shy when it comes to meeting women. I'm not one of these guys that can go into the supermarket and say, hey, you're buying Kleenex or Scott tissue? You know? If my life depended on it, I couldn't. I mean, if Marilyn Monroe walked in, I couldn't do it. I'm awkward and I feel awkward. I have to be introduced, or the girl has to introduce herself to me. You know, it's got to be something like that. Otherwise, I've let a lot of women slip by because of my shyness. Even today, at this advanced age, maybe even more so now. But anyway, we were introduced and we hit it off and we started dating. And early in our affair, if you want to call it that, she told me about the guy that she had been with that night. I first saw her, and how she broke up with him and how he was so crushed and almost suicidal over her. I was sort of moved by that, you know, for a number of reasons that came to me later, maybe because that narcissism of a 20-year-old girl made her so confident in being able to tell me that it was very sexy. Anyway, when she first told me about the ex-boyfriend, I sat down. I was living with my mother like any loser musician would do at age 33. She was 20. And I started to write the song from what I perceived as his point of view. And I got about 2/3 of the way through the song, and I couldn't come up with an ending. So I put it in the piano bench at my mother's house.
And you never did that, right? You always finish songs.
And I always finish a song within 2 or 3 hours at max. And if I figured if it's not good enough to finish, I toss it. Thank God I didn't toss that one. But a year later, when she broke up with me, and I was crushed, and I had never been in that much pain in my life ever. And I just invested so much of myself in this girl that, you know, it was horrible. I lost like 30 pounds, and I didn't have 30 pounds to lose, you know, back then. And I mean, I started therapy. I mean, it was really bad. And one day I pulled the song out of the piano bench and finished it. That last verse is basically autobiographical. Another song that I wrote about the same relationship not long after that was entirely autobiographical was Here Comes the Dawn.
Here comes the dawn again. No sleep last night again. I cried from midnight straight through till daylight. Here comes the dawn again.
That's my very favorite of all your songs.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. That was my lawyer's favorite also.
Oh, yeah?
He loved that song. He would pitch it to clients sometimes, you know. My dream was to get Gladys Knight to sing it. She would have killed that song, man. She would have murdered it. Oh, my God, she would have killed it. You know, she and I were born the same day and year.
Really?
Oh, my goodness.
She looks a lot better than I do at 80 years old. But yeah. Great singer. That was another act we worked with when they were a $250 a night act.
Gladys Knight and the Pips.
You know, shortly after that, they signed with Motown, and immediately, even before they had a record out, their price went up to $2,500 a night.
Oh, wow.
Just for going to Motown, huh?
Yeah, right. And the whole act was great. The cousins and the brothers the dancing routines. They were wonderful, wonderful. She was one of the very best singers.
Yeah, she's really good. Hey, going back to By Request in that era of songs, something that some people might not know is that your hit album By Request is actually a compilation of 2 earlier albums from the Alpha label, Billy Vera and Billy and the Beaters. You took songs off of both of those records. I'm sure that your compilation went on to probably be, still to this day, one of the biggest songs that Rhino ever released, right?
Well, yeah, because they weren't in that business of, commercial records. They were an oldies label.
Yeah.
In fact, the way it ended up on Rhino was the owner was a friend of mine, Richard Foos. And we would go out and have these periodic lunches where we would have these mock arguments about things like whose version of Mustang Sally is better. Real record nerd arguments,
Yeah.
Was it the Rascals version? Was it Wilson Pickett's version? Was it Sir Mac Rice's original? That kind of thing. So one day we're at one of these lunches, and at this moment had gotten played on Family Ties, the television show, and I got mail. Now I had songs on TV shows before, and usually they're played in the background, nobody notices them, but you make a couple of bucks, and it's nice, good for the ego, good for the pocketbook,
Yep, sounds good.
Well, this time I got mail. Who's the singer? What's the name of the song? So I happened to mention this to Richard. And at the time, Rhino he was also part owner of a store called Rhino Records. And the guys at the store, I would go in there, I would do a radio show every Saturday. And after that, I'd go into Rhino and see what was the latest reissue records. And the guys were always saying, man, why don't you put out a record? Wait, aren't you going to make another album? Blah, 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 blah. They were always bugging me about that. So I said to Richard, I said, with the song being played on Family Ties, maybe we could sell a few records. How many do you need to break even at your little company? He said, well, we have a low overhead here. We could probably sell a few thousand and break even. And, to this day, he'll tell you he only did it because he liked me.
Wow.
He never imagined that it would sell anything. It was really it was a mercy release, So as luck would have it, they used the song the following season again when the girl breaks up with Michael J. Fox.
Right, I remember that.
Now the story of the song, Boy Loses Girl, is the same as the story of the episode, Boy Loses Girl. And, people like that story. And man, NBC called up Rhino and said, my God, this is the most phone calls we've ever gotten in the history of the network.
Holy cow.
So suddenly Rhino, which had no idea how to promote a record, because they weren't in that business.
Yeah.
They might as well have been in selling hubcaps business, and records. And so they hired a promotion guy. The guy would have me come over to their office every day, and we'd call up 20, 30, 40 radio stations. Hi, I'm Billy Vera. When I'm in town, I listen to KRAP 88.FM. Do promos and then talk to the disc jockeys, and I'm sure it helped. My mother, who had cancer at the time, that eventually took her life. She was living in Boca Raton in Florida, and she would call up the morning disc jockeys at the local stations. I'm Billy Vera's mother. And, these guys are the guys that do the morning shows, they're all jerks.
They're wacky.
They make fun of her. And she was hip. My mother was hip. She knew they were making fun of her. She didn't care. As long as they played her boy records.
There you go.
She was taking one for the team. Yep.
That's mother love. My mother was a singer, too.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
She was on the Perry Como show as a background singer, the Ray Charles Singers, and on Perry's records. Of course, she gave me great advice. If you're going to be in show business, remember this. Show business is peaks and valleys. Mm-hmm. One year you'll make a bundle. The next year you'll make nothing. So always live below your means. And boy, I live by those holy words.
And that's good.
Yeah. So that was the story of how, Rhino got it.
I saw you last night dining at my maison, stumbling downstairs, pulling your clothes on. You sure could sell it, you'd rather give it, but
You know what I noticed, Sarah, as I was editing
I
this
don't
episode?
know. No.
I was so enthralled with listening to Billy's stories and just overwhelmed by the fact that we were spending time with Billy Vera that I didn't even notice at the end when he was talking about doing promotion work with Rhino and how he had to go to all those radio stations. He had to call in like 30 stations a day.
Yeah.
He said, I listened to WKRAP or what.
Yeah. KRAP. Yep.
You started laughing. And I'm just completely silent because I can just imagine myself sitting there slack-jawed with my face resting on my hand, just listening to these stories.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I had so much fun editing that episode.
Oh, good.
Listening to the stories again.
Yeah.
And adding the music because I love all that music so much. This is common knowledge to you, so you're not all that curious. But I mentioned in the episode, hey, Billy, If I Were a Magician is my third favorite of your songs.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, Billy, Here Comes the Dawn Again is my number one favorite of your songs. I never said what was the number two favorite song of mine, even though it's actually in this episode.
What?
I played a sample of it right in the episode because, it's my number two favorite.
Okay.
So that song that he talked about very briefly, he didn't really go into too much detail on it, but I put the song sample in anyway because it's my number two song. Corner of the Night.
Oh, yeah.
That is a great one. It's the first track on By Request, the best of Billy Vera and the Beaters.
Yeah, that is an excellent song. You have good taste.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. We hope you enjoyed our chat with Billy. Our next episode will be the second half. We got you right up to at this moment in this episode, and we talk about it a little bit, so hopefully you enjoyed revisiting the days of 1987 when At This Moment was number one on the charts.
Right, yeah.
I had a great time.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget, it's billyvera.com for all the details. The Real Billy Vera on Facebook to follow him. You might actually see that painting that I mentioned at the beginning of the episode. You might see it if you follow him on Facebook.
Yes, you might.
Or check the show notes here, maybe.
Okay.
Of course, all his books that we mentioned and records available on Amazon.com.
Right.
Or any of your finer online vendors.
Indeed.
But I highly recommend his book, From Harlem to Hollywood.
It is a good read. Very, very exciting. If you like the stories that he's been telling so far, you'll get to read those and many more in that book.
So we hope you will join us next time for part 2 of our interview with Billy. Before we get going, though, Sarah, we have round 2 of Sarah's song snippet because last time I checked her email, no one had guessed what your very viciously edited song snippet was. A number of people took guesses at it. I gave them credit for trying.
Yeah.
But no one has gotten it.
No one guessed correctly.
Yeah.
We did have guesses. We did have submissions. But no one has guessed Sarah's secret summer song snippet. No, not yet.
So, you're very generous. I noticed that this week you've extended the song snippet up to almost 0.75 seconds.
Yeah, it's almost 3/4 of a second. I hope you can get it now.
So what happens if they get it?
They get a t-shirt. One of our fantastic t-shirts designed by 2 of our very good and artistic friends. And yeah, of course, the pleasure of knowing that you're really good at guessing songs, very, very short snippets of songs. But
that you have incredible knowledge of 80s music.
That's right.
80s pop music.
Yeah.
And the shirts, of course, you can't just get those anywhere. They're limited editions.
Correct. Yeah, they are not available in stores or online.
We used to have a Redbubble store, but not anymore. And this is the only place to get it. So they just need to, if they know what the song is from your new snippet, they just need to reach out to us.
Yes.
Email, on social media, just message us directly.
Use one of those electronic methods that are out there.
And let us know your guess. And the first person who gets us the right answer will win the prize, right?
That is right.
All right. So I'll play him the song snippet, Sarah, since you were so kind to send it to me.
Of course.
If you guys have time, we just need 0.75 seconds. This is it. Wow. Let me give it to him one more time just to help him out.
Right.
Do you mind?
I guess not.
All right.
Yeah.
Here, folks, because I love you, here is a second listen. And it's just that easy.
Yeah, I hope someone gets it this time.
I'm sure they will. We have a lot of professional music fans listening.
Professional music fans.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks again for joining us as we talk with Billy Vera. I hope you enjoyed the episode. What a treat it was. Thanks, Billy.
I know.
Really appreciate you taking time to hang out with us. It was awesome.
Yeah, still can't believe that happened. It's just unreal.
I'm in a daze. Follow us on social media.
Yeah, let us know your thoughts always. We've got all kinds of social media outlets. We've got Facebook, we've got X, we've got Instagram, we've got Threads, we've got Blue Sky, and we've got voicemail.
We do. You can leave us a voicemail about your favorite Billy Vera memories. Did you see him on Wiseguy? We're going to talk about Wiseguy in the next episode. We're going to talk about some of his movie roles. If you like, by request, like I did, Retro Nuevo, some of that early music from the 60s, if you like any of that stuff, let me know, man. I love talking to fans of Billy. You can leave us a voicemail at 724-490-8324 or at speakpipe.com/permrecordpod. They'll all get to us, and we'll get to listen and play them on the air.
That sounds great. I do hope we hear from some of you.
Billy telling stories about doing promotional work on radio made me think that we are on the air. I just said we'll play them on the air.
Yeah.
Our podcast air.
Yeah, right. Well, the air in this room anyway.
So thanks so much, folks. We are going to get going. Hope you enjoyed the episode. Hope you're enjoying your summer, and we will talk to you soon.
See you then.
You've got his ring. You've got his heart. You've got his baby.